Welcome to the Bookselling Monsters Podcast. Hear the stories of how booksellers are crushing the game selling on Amazon, and keep up with the latest strategies that are working in the book industry. Sit back, relax, and remember, if you truly try and work really hard, you will make a ridiculous amount of money selling on Amazon.
But you actually have to try. You actually have to put effort in. Vishal has put a lot of effort in. Welcome to the pod. How you doing?
Good. How are you, Avery?
Pretty good, man. Excited to have you here. You're a huge inspiration. How old are you?
24, turning 25 this year.
24 years old. You've scaled to 400K months. Some months, I know some months you do more than that. Some months you do less than that. When I was talking to you on the phone, you said like 600 Canadian dollars or whatever.
Me and Manroop have a running joke that you seem to keep the same number for like the last 2 years.
What is it now?
It's a lot higher than that.
I gotta update my thumbnail, man. What is it?
Yeah, the next podcast we'll update it.
Okay, is it above 1 mil?
No, it's still under 1 mil.
Canadian 1 mil? Close,
yeah.
Okay, cool. In this podcast today, we'll be discussing strategies on where to find bulk books. Should you sell books in bulk? Tips on managing a warehouse, tips for managing a large team in general. We'll be talking a lot about Vishal's story and if he thinks that, what his plans are for the future, because obviously he's thinking a lot about the future. He's really young. He's already had a lot of success doing this, but he's definitely not retired yet, like the book flipper. So we'll be discussing all of this and more. So first of all, let's actually start with how the hell you started doing this. What really got you into this? Did you start, just going to thrift stores? And why did you start with books?
Yeah, so we started back in third year of our university degree. I met Manroop at UBC. That was the university we went to out in British Columbia. We started off just by going to thrift stores. I was actually living on campus third year. So we would hit the thrift stores, bring the books back to my dorm, list them out of there. We weren't using any listing software. We were just using the seller app. I would even, how you can attach pictures to your like condition description. I would even take pictures of the books thinking it would help because it would make your listing bigger.
Yeah.
From there, we eventually got into bulk. So we started out small. We had a small storage unit. It was about 300 square feet. We moved from a 300 square feet to like a 2,000, 3,000 square feet warehouse. We moved to a 5,000. And now today we have like 18,000 square feet. And that's basically over 2.5 years. We just made those small steps. And I think now we're pretty locked in on like where we want to be. So we're not going to get more warehouse space. At least I don't think we will. But now it's just kind of maximizing what we already have, getting more efficiency out of our operation and just making it as lean as possible. That's
right. So did you pursue like the same thrift stores that you were hitting up for bulk books?
Yes and no, because so we get supply from out of province. So I guess we'll get into that later on when we talk about getting bulk books. But it's like you don't necessarily just need to get supply from, I guess, the province or state you're in. You could hit the neighboring provinces or states as well, right? Assuming freight's like, I would keep it under $1,500 for a trailer. If it's under $1,500, you can probably reach out to that supplier to get their bulk books. But that is how we started. So like, for example, like our first supplier was basically, there's a charity that has donation bins and they collect books. They're obviously doing something with those books. So then we kind of just cold emailed and then we got bounced around to a couple people. And that was one of our first big suppliers.
What even made you think this was an idea though? Because like this seems like every time I tell a story like this to just like a regular person that doesn't watch like a bunch of social media, they think I'm like a connoisseur of selling books. Like people would see me in college with like huge piles of books and they'd be like, oh, this kid's a genius, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, no, I'm just doing what the fuck like I saw on YouTube. I saw Caleb Roth doing the same thing. And I'm just like, I saw these YouTube videos and I did it. Did you see YouTube videos or like TikToks or anything that like you were like, this is fucking possible? Or what were you just kind of like what was your approach? Were you inspired by other people doing this?
The cherry picking side, yes, but unfortunately, there's not a lot of content. I mean, maybe there's more now, but when we started,
yeah. The bulk guys
there's
like
a lot of content about bulk.
the bulk guys don't even like to make content. Like,
Yeah, basically, you might get lucky and find a little bit more now, but back then there was nothing. And then I think it was just kind of the Facebook groups and the idea. Like, I know the first 2-3 Gaylors we bought were out of my garage. I mean, we completely overpaid for them. I don't even know if we made money off them, but that was kind of how we started. And then from there, it was just like, okay, well, we need to find cheaper supply because this doesn't make sense. Yeah. And then you need machinery.
There's a paradox out there with posting on social media. It's like, I feel like the more money you're making on Amazon, and I don't know how to put this, but like, there's a correlation between you making a lot of money on Amazon and wanting to post less on social media because you're afraid that people are actually going to take your strategies or your supply. The supply is a big one with wholesale and online arbitrage. Like, you want to give away some tips, but you don't want them to know exactly where you're getting. Like, you don't want to give the address of your supplier. You don't want to give the ASIN of the product you're selling, So there's an interesting dynamic there. And I think
like about the supply thing, I always say everyone knows who the suppliers are. There's a reason, for example, like the suppliers we have, I guess, in Western Canada and at Washington State, like there's a reason they still work with us for the last 3 years. And I can tell you for sure, it's not necessarily that we pay them more even, right? There's a lot of other things like how easy you make it for them, how consistent you are. Mm-hmm. And those are probably more important than the extra couple cents a pound you're going to pay them or offer them.
Okay. So I want to ask you about exactly where to get bulk books, but before we get into that, who should be interested in bulk? Who should genuinely like try their hand at this? What should they have in place? Should they have a warehouse? If they're in the middle of nowhere, should they pursue bulk? If they're in a big city, like a lot of different variables. Like, if you can kind of walk us through the type of person who would do well with bulk. And kind of what things to expect as a bulk bookseller.
So type of city, I mean, obviously the best books are in the big cities. So a reasonable population or at least neighboring states and provinces where you could tap into to get books would be good. I think the biggest thing for us would be, one of our biggest issues has always been space. That's why we have 3 warehouses now. They're all focused on something, but the biggest thing was always space. So I feel like you do need to have some sort of space to start bulk books. Like, you can't just start it out of an apartment. Right, At minimum, you need a garage or a basement or something like that, right? So you do need space, and I think that's big. As long as you have space, I think there was another presentation we did with you where I showed that PowerPoint, and it's like how far you could get with just like 100 square feet of space. Like, if you have 100 square feet of space, you could set up a lot of shelving in that much space. Mm-hmm. And I think you'd have like about 30 to 40 books per square feet. So you could have like a 3,000, 4,000 book MF operation out of 100 square feet. And that's like pretty good for, I guess, most people. So I would say the biggest thing is you do need to have a little bit of space. In terms of startup capital, you could start off by using the same apps and softwares and lists and softwares you already use. So that's not an issue because you probably already are subscribed to that stuff. The buy cost is just make sure you know who you're buying from and you're not getting absolutely fleeced. A lot of people talk about what the rates are in the Facebook group. So it's pretty standard. Like, whatever the average rate is, you should be willing to pay it. I wouldn't think too long and hard about whether the supply is good or not, because you'll find out after you buy your first 3-4 anyways. And it's not like you're going to lose money. You could always at least break even. Even if it's another seller's duds, there's always a way to break even if that's important. Mm-hmm.
What are some mistakes people make buying their first bulk books, and like what can they do to prevent that? I can say from experience, a mistake that I made was I think I purchased 4 pallets of books, and I got like a big truck, and I rented a storage unit, and like my overhead by the time for 4 pallets of books was just like I wasn't going to make any money, So what kind of things do you see that people make mistakes that maybe if you let them know now, they won't make those mistakes?
One is overpaying. I feel like in bulk, you want to make sure your buy cost is as low as possible, especially if you're not 100% confident about the supply. 2 is know who you're buying from. So if you're buying from like a thrift store, a bookstore, whatever, you know where that supply came from. It would probably came off their shelves. They couldn't sell it. That's fine. You can go ahead with that. But just make sure you don't buy another seller's duds off Facebook Marketplace. And 3 is just make sure you know how to get rid of them. Because if you're stuck with 4 Gaylords of books, I know the first 2-3 Gaylords we bought, we boxed up all those books and sent them to Valley Village, or Savers is what they call them in the US. Mm-hmm. So, but that it took us like 4 trips in our SUVs to get it done. Yeah. So you got to make sure you know how to get rid of them, and that's the biggest thing.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's when people really understand the struggle that these places deal with. Like, books are a problem, they're heavy. They suck to move. And I think when you start selling books, you look at books as gold because maybe you've sold a few for a profit. And so you see a whole room of books and your brain just goes, oh my gosh, like this is so good. And then they're like, pay me for them and take them all away. And you're like, all right, I will. And then you realize they're all trash and that you're doing them the favor instead of the reverse. I think every new bookseller has to deal with that. So what go ahead.
Yeah, one thing we're focusing on now is, I don't know if this is going to fall in another question maybe later, but it's like, instead of free book pickups are like a real thing. And a lot of people do them, and a lot of people get 10,000 pounds, which is like 10 plus Gaylords a week off this. And that's something we're starting up. So we actually have a website called zoombooks.ca. It's just Zoom, like the video chat conference, zoombooks.ca. And that's basically what we're focusing on right now. It's just getting bins out there and scheduling pickups for like large, like 10 plus boxes, so like 400 plus pounds. And there's a lot of potential in that for sure, because there's no better books than the books out of someone's house.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's huge, man. And also, how big of a deal is like, I mean, I guess you haven't traveled too much for your book business, but what about just like in your city? Have you realized like the better books are always on the wealthier side of town, or on average, they're on the wealthy side?
We live in a pretty wealthy province. So British Columbia is pretty wealthy, and I'd say the education rate's pretty high. So we're fortunate in that sense. But I would definitely say that makes a difference, because if you ask people in the US who has the best books, everyone's going to say the same answer. It's always out east, and like Boston area or whatever, New York, stuff like that, right?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah,
the books out there, man. Like, when I went on my trip with Andrew, have you met Andrew in person?
I've just seen him through your stuff, but not in person.
Dude, he's hilarious, man. We went out there, and every thrift store we went to, we found $100 books just like on the shelf. But so if somebody wants to get into bulk, what are the steps? Like, they're gung-ho, they're set on doing this. How do they land their first client? How do they land their first supplier?
So let's say you're going out, you're hitting stores. My opinion is it's probably best to skip out on the people who are too big. So maybe don't approach a very large thrift store where asking for 2, 3, 4, 5 Gaylords might not seem like it's worth it to them. But I know in the States, there's a lot of bookstores and like other smaller mom and pop thrift stores that they for sure have 2, 3, 4 Gaylords in the back. And I think they would be more willing to sell to you. And it's a lot easier to start out on that scale than to jump into a full trailer right off the bat. Because I feel like if you just jump into full trailer right away, you're just asking for trouble. Mm-hmm. How to close the deal? I mean, you got to email as many people as you can, call as many people as you can. You probably won't reach the right person in your first 2 calls or emails, but that's okay, because eventually you'll get bounced around to the right person. And then once you reach that right person, it's just figuring out what they want and need and what the price is, and then going from there.
Yeah. What's the conversation generally look like when you call them up?
So assuming we have the right person in front of us, right? So we're talking to the right person. A couple of things we discuss is, hey, do you guys have books in bulk? The answer is either going to be yes or no. Are you guys selling them to someone, or do you need to currently move them? Most likely they're already selling it to someone, because if they have books in bulk, they're obviously selling it to someone.
Yeah.
So it's likely probably one of the bigger companies in the States. At that point, now's where it's your chance to kind of get closer to them, because the bigger companies aren't constantly messaging them for books. They just wait for them to message saying, hey, we have 20 Gaylords, you need to take them. The bigger companies aren't reaching out every week saying, hey, do you have books? Do you have books? Do you have books? So at that point, it would just be figuring out the rate, maybe saying, hey, I can pick up faster than them. So like I can take 5 at a time or 10 at a time, whereas they're only taking 40 at a time from you. We've done that before multiple times. It costs a bit more money in freight, but it works. The one thing I would caution against is just paying more for books. The easy answer is to take, say they're getting 8 cents. They say, hey, we're already getting 8 cents. It doesn't make sense for us to sell you. But then you can offer a little more in that case. But I realize that not a lot of these suppliers will care about how much you pay them. So don't just offer them like 4 cents more and say, hey, we'll just pay you 12. I know they're paying 8. So it's obvious you should take our deal. It's way better. I don't think that always works, but.
Right. Yeah, I always get the question too, how much should you pay per pound? Like what's a good rate?
6 to 10 cents.
Is it ever worth paying? Like I get messages from people like, hey, like this person's offering me a $200 Gaylord. Is there ever a scenario where you'll pay 200?
Out of all our suppliers, I can only think of one supplier that I would pay $200 a Gaylord for.
Mm-hmm.
So that shows like how premium it has to be. It's not even that other Gaylords aren't worth $200 a Gaylord. It's just what's the opportunity cost? You can get so many Gaylords for $200.
Right.
You can get 3 for 1. I get that you save labor and stuff too, but out of all our suppliers, there's probably only one we would pay that much.
Gotcha.
That's like pretty high.
So when you talked about setting up your own space to be ready for bulk, you mentioned shelving, which implies that you're thinking of doing merchant fulfilled and cross listing across multiple platforms. Should people who are just starting out focus on merchant fulfilled and cross listing, or would you recommend they focus on FBA?
Focus on FBA, but I feel like sooner than later you should at least learn the process of doing it. Mm-hmm. So when you have to flip that switch, you're ready to go. Mm-hmm. I think it's necessary. I mean, right now it doesn't seem like it's necessary because the capacity limits are so high, and Amazon's being super nice now, but they're always nice around this time of the year.
Yeah. Let's kind of talk about that a little bit. So first of all, before we talk about capacity limits, Amazon now charges upwards of $3, $2.83, maybe even more for books to be disposed or removed of. Right, that's the number. I did the math. It was like $2.80.
It's high. Yeah.
It's
like it's insane. It's not worth it.
How has that affected your business and what you send FBA as a bulk seller?
We use the liquidate option, but not everything gets liquidated. So liquidate, after they factor in their fees and how much you get, it ends up kind of like canceling out and being essentially free. So you should definitely do that over disposal. I have a feeling in the future liquidation has become less appealing because Amazon definitely knows people are taking advantage of this, but it was a new program, so they keep it cheap to start, right?
And how can people take advantage of that? I mean, I haven't even really.
You don't take advantage of it. It's just like the obvious thing to do. Like, why would you dispose when you could just liquidate, right? Because it's way cheaper.
So you just click on liquidate when you.
Yeah, like liquidate should be an option out of the 3.
Okay, shit, I need to start doing that.
Yeah. So you'll basically it'll just cancel out. It'll be free.
Okay.
So for books, you should definitely be liquidating. Not everything will be liquidated. We do have a pretty strict criteria for FBA. So it's like above like 10, 11 e-score, something in that range. So we hope that all those books do sell, but obviously they do. They don't all sell. So
what about price? Are you cutting off at like $15 or anything like that? Or are you still?
No, we go a lot lower than that, but I mean, if you're in bulk, it makes sense to go a lot lower than that, right? Because you already have the books.
Right. Yeah. So what is your, okay, I guess, where do I want to take this? Let's talk about capacity limits real quick. So how are capacity limits affecting you, and what do you kind of think is going to be the future for booksellers, at least this year? I know we have no idea what's going to be the future, but what is your game plan?
So right now our capacity limits are through the roof, as they probably are for everyone else. You can request.
When did they go through the roof? Because mine just went through the roof, like recently.
Like we're using 50% of what we have.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, I'm
there's
using
really
50%
no-
now, but like a month ago, I was at capacity.
Yeah, it was a bit tighter. The thing is, they adjusted up like before the month hits, once they realized they have more space. But you can request it, and then I don't know if anyone's ever like experimented with the performance credit calculator, but it's a cheat code. You're never gonna pay them anything. So you can request a shit ton of space, and you'll never have to pay anything
Mm-hmm.
because your sales, and even if they take 15% of that as like the performance credit or whatever, it's always going to cancel out what your fees are for the extra space. So you'll never actually end up paying anything.
Yeah.
So experiment with that calculator and that Excel spreadsheet. They make it pretty easy to use, but you can request space for practically free.
Mm-hmm. Dude, I would say that they freaked me out because like a month ago I ran out of space and I couldn't request more. I don't know. How much?
You should be able to request up to 2,000 cubic feet.
Yeah, I'm not sure. It's not a newer account, but I don't really sell on this account much. So I think maybe I just scaled it really fast and like filled a bunch up. And then they were like, hold off, let's make sure this stuff sells. But when I saw that, I'm like, oh, this really reminds me of Restock limits where they can just do whatever the fuck they want at any time.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's Amazon, man.
So I would the one thing I would be concerned about is that, and this is what I'm saying, it's like it looks all good right now because if you have extra space and you can request extra space, the problem is we don't know what the limits are going to become October, November, December, right? Like for example, I think we're using like close to 2,000 cubic feet. What if in November they only authorize us for 100 cubic feet? Then I need to request 2,000 more. That's going to bring us up to like 2,100, and then we can't list anything. So we don't know how much they're going to allocate to us in those key like 3-4 months, right? Mm-hmm. And that's when all these problems basically start. So
yeah. What someone's asking what software you use to track your profits.
So we don't use like a SKU ASIN based software. We're just normal accounting software on QuickBooks.
Do you want to know a software you can use?
Yeah.
Go to Lister, setting a new standard for Amazon booksellers and online arbitrage sellers. List 100 plus books per hour. Spend less time listing and more time finding profitable product. Go to Lister also has profit analytics to make tax season a breeze.
This is a race car driver. I paid him to
sign up for a free
race car
14-day
driver, but he
trial
does
of
like
Go to Lister today.
he does voiceovers for like race car events and stuff. So I paid him like $200 for all these. I have a bunch. I have like some for so we're going to Costa Rica next week.
RJ Experiences. Travel the world to scenic locations with 7-figure Amazon sellers.
Oh, I paid him to record a bunch of these. Probably too many, but I got like super gung-ho on it. I'm like, I'm going to get this guy. So anyway, yeah, Go to Lister does show you profit analytics though. If you guys log into your dashboard, you can see what your total sales were, what your costs were, what your Amazon fees were. This just tells you your gross profit. So like, for example, Vishal's doing 600K and his buy cost on that's probably super low. So your gross profit on here would probably come up as like 300K or something, maybe more. But in reality, like you would have like a bunch of overhead, your warehouse, all that stuff. This just factors in Amazon fees minus buy cost. So if you run a wholesale business or online arbitrage or a cherry picking book business, like this basically tells you what your profit is. But if you run an operation like Vishal, then you have to know, what are you paying for employees? Like that's probably your biggest expense, warehouse costs and all that.
Right, exactly. So we don't track like how much this specific book costed us, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So what tips do you have for managing a warehouse and managing like a large team? Let's start with the warehouse. Like what at scale, let's just pretend someone's out there. I mean, I'm sure there's a few listeners that do have a warehouse. What tips do you have for them to like really maximize their profits and efficiencies?
So I think it's kind of cliche, but it all comes down to the right people, right? Because when we first started at the smaller warehouses, we were basically everything. We were the two main people working there. We were scanning the books ourselves. Then we eventually brought 1, 2, 3 people on. But now I think on payroll, we're probably at least 25 people. And we have 3 different warehouses, and we can't be at all 3 places at the same time. So like one of our warehouses has like a really good supervisor manager that in the last 6 months has picked up most of it. And we probably only go to that warehouse once a week. So I think if you are going to scale up and you don't plan on being there the entire time, you need to hire the right person that you trust that can just get shit done, basically. Because there's no way we would be able to do what we're doing if we didn't have, I can think of at least maybe 3 people out of the 25 that if we did not have them, it would not run as smoothly.
And what type of personalities do they have, and what are they doing that's really allowing you to like be more efficient?
They go above and beyond. So like, it's not like, hey, I don't feel well today, I'm not coming. Like that's a big thing for me. Because like, for example, if our guy doesn't show up at one of our other warehouses, it's like, well, other people don't really know how to do some of the software stuff. So he has to do that. And so 1, going above and beyond, and like 2, just making our lives easier. They realize what problems we have and they try helping us solve those problems instead of creating more problems.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really just the above and beyond thing. They don't have the same habits of what just a normal employee has.
Mm-hmm. So
they treat your business like they own it, basically.
Gotcha. So what's your kind of go-to hiring process for people? Are you going to Craigslist, or do you even have Craigslist up in Canada?
Yep.
What are you doing to like look for these people?
We use Indeed, a lot of referrals. So like someone vouches for someone. That's probably the most common. Indeed and that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. David talks about Indeed. I tried Indeed. I think I hired one of my listers from Indeed years ago. That was pretty crazy though, because I just like hired her and I just disposed a bunch of books to her house, and she.
You also another thing. We don't have much turnover, so we don't like churn through employees every month like crazy. So we have a lot of these people have been a year plus. I'd say more than half of our, maybe 75% of our staff has been a year plus.
Yeah, that's good.
So, and the main guys I'm talking about, those are like 2 years, 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
They've been
Do you have like a virtual team too? Like, do you have people helping out virtually or not really?
We do have one VA in the Philippines that we started in the last 2-3 months, and we're kind of just paying her. But the point was we would just pay her, and then we're slowly building up her like work.
And what type of work does a virtual assistant do for a bulk bookseller?
So she has access to her emails. She can make invoices, look at weights, all that stuff. She deals with our like stranded inventory on Amazon. I mean, here, let me just pull up like we have so many videos made for her. I can just pull this up and give you exactly what she does.
Yeah, stranded inventory, pricing errors.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay, so she does. So she schedules like all our LTL freight for us and creates BOLs for that. So we export all our duds to India. She does all the export documentation. We have some eBay related tasks for like listings that don't have images. She does that. There's Amazon related tasks in terms of pricing help, feedback removal, creating liquidation orders and removing duds, stranded inventory. There is she closes our FBA shipments for us. So she creates our FBA shipments for us, and then we just go in and print the labels. She sends so one of our other warehouses, they're basically processing the non-barcoded books. She just sends us a report at the end of the day, like how they performed, how much they scanned, what our expected ROI is, and all that stuff. This is cool. She does our employee hours, so it makes it very easy to run payroll every 2 weeks. So she'll look at, we use Homebase to clock hours. She'll get the hours off that and basically just input into a sheet, and then we just confirm it and run payroll. Incoming loads, what should she do here? Oh, so she gathers up all the freight invoices and material invoices and attaches them to a load so we know exactly how much that specific load costs us. And when it comes time to pay our carriers and our suppliers, you could just cross-reference the invoices and stuff. And the last thing is she has access to our emails. So she can look at weights that we receive, whatever invoices we have to create and all that stuff. It's quite a bit. It sounds like quite a bit, but it really only takes her like 3-4 hours a day. So we still need to give her like 4 more hours of work.
Yeah, dude, that's the thing though. It's like sometimes it's hard to realize like you can look at a virtual assistant's day and you can say, oh, this is so easy. But then like if they don't work for a few days and you have to do the task and you time yourself, I think it's good to do that every once in a while just to get in touch with what they're doing. So you're probably right. You have a better pulse for your business than I do. But sometimes I'm like, holy crap, like how are they doing all this stuff? It's almost impossible because it takes me like half my day to do a quarter of the tasks they have. Elon Musk, he has a personal assistant, and his personal assistant wanted a raise. And he was like, I'm just going to do all the stuff you do for a day, just see how long it takes me. And he did it like super fast. And he was like, you don't deserve a raise. And he fired her and hired someone else. So, I mean, there's different scenarios, but I think every once in a while it's good to get in the dirt. It's good to go scan some books. It's good to do.
She's pretty open. I mean, she's like says that like I've been doing this stuff for a long time. So now it's easy for me and I can do it faster. That's why I need more stuff. Like there's days where like she sends us a timesheet. There's days where it's 7 hours, 8 hours, whatever. I understand that, right? But then like after a week of not giving me new stuff, it dropped to like 4, 5 because she's like, I know how to do all this stuff now.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. I want you to talk about the biggest opportunity that you think booksellers have in 2023. But before we dive into that, I want to share the fastest listing software on planet Earth, GoToLister. It's been a while since I've done one of these. I left my scanner in Connecticut, so I can't scan books for you guys today, but instead, let me know if you can see that. We're going to dive in here. For anyone that doesn't know what GoToLister is, it's a listing software that allows you to quickly list books on Amazon. So I'll show you can quickly make a batch here. We have smart pricing. So if you're in a hurry and you're listing your books fast, which you should, you can use smart pricing, which prices your books higher, allows you to make more profit. No other listing software does this. You can also select where you're shipping the item from. And then if you want to list your products yourself, which I recommend you do, otherwise you got to pay Amazon like 30 cents plus, which is ridiculous. We also have box contents, which I think, Vishal, you were asking about that a while back. Now we do have it. So it's super easy. Once Amazon splits your shipments, you can just scan the book and it tells you what warehouse destination it goes to. You can quickly change the condition of books here, add a source, add a buy cost. I recommend using the same condition note for all your books, just something simple like satisfaction guaranteed. And then you can quickly list books here. So let's just list Fahrenheit 451. You can list this book. Boom, looks like we're restricted. You can quickly apply for approval if you're restricted in the problem area over here. And I think the coolest thing about our software is we allow you to scan as fast as you want. So other softwares don't do this, but I can literally scan. I'm going to scan this book 10 times. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And as you can see, Amazon's taking their time to provide the effing SKU, but we just queued everything in there. So you can literally list at lightning speeds. You can also view your sales. This is the same information you see on Seller Central. Nothing crazy here. But what is cool about GoToLister is we show you how much profit you're making on a daily basis. You can see I've done 87,000 in sales. Out of all this inventory that sold, I paid $37,000 for it. Amazon charged me $18,000 in fees. That leaves me with $32,000 profit. Now, of course, I have virtual assistant fees. I have to pay for these items to be prepped. So I probably paid about $3,000 for these items to be prepped. I probably paid my team $2,000 just to manage the inventory, all that stuff. But you can see on a daily basis, like yesterday we did 5K in sales, a true $1,800 profit. So this makes tax season a breeze because you're quickly able just to download all of this and give it to your CPA and show. You can do this on an annual basis too and show him, hey, this is how much I did in the Amazon sales. This is how much they paid me. This is how much I paid for the inventory. So that's GoToLister, guys. If you guys want to get a free trial, the link is below. And if you guys are brand new, message us, Vishal, and we will give you, what will we give you? What do I do here? We'll give you half off your first month. Just, you guys see Vishal's name, go follow him on IG, Van City FBA. Message us at support@GoToLister. Vishal, this goes for everyone watching the replay too, and we'll hook you up with half off your first month. Doesn't matter if you have a free trial right now, we'll still apply that half off for your first month. Back to the pod, biggest opportunity for booksellers in 2023. You can take this any direction you want. Let's get what you got.
That's a tough question.
It is.
Yeah, biggest opportunity.
Booksellers, cherry pickers, maybe the opportunity, let's keep it books, but I mean, you talked a little bit about pickups, you talked a little bit about the best books are at people's houses. I think a lot of people watch TikToks and stuff and they get so excited about the opportunity of going to a thrift store, but they really forget to get creative. Like I get really inspired by, what you guys are doing, what Bill at Sell Back Your Book, like I get inspired on the level of like, how could I create a Sell Back Your Book? I get inspired on the level, like, how could I be a Zip It, or what can I do that, Thrift Books or Discover is doing? Like, and you made a good point. You can take what these huge companies are doing and you can reach out to the suppliers near you and you can give them a more personalized business relationship, so I think there's tons of opportunity, but in your opinion, what's the best out there?
I have an idea. So I'm on like a high level, something everyone's struggling with right now is recycling rates. So bulk sellers typically get paid for their duds when they get rid of them, and those rates have gone down the drain. So if someone can find a way to kind of, this is something that always happens. Like the market gets hot for maybe a year and then the rates go down the drain. So this is a problem that will always exist. So I feel like, and this is something we just started recently, like monetizing on, and I don't know how well it's going to go. We just started in the last 2 months. We're going to figure out after the first 6-7 months how these books are doing, but we started processing the non-barcode books. So books that don't have a barcode on them, and they might have an ISBN number just written on the back, or you have to open the page to the copyright. We started processing those, and we're doing decent, but I wouldn't know until we start getting some sell-through on how those units are performing. And I know like a lot of these larger companies, like someone could probably get in touch with like Bill and Reed, but I don't think they process their non-barcode books. So there's a lot of meat still left in those books if someone can find a way to efficiently process those and take advantage of someone else's duds, because you maybe even get them for free in some cases.
Yeah, we can talk a little bit more about this off air because I have a buddy who's like doing something with those, and I actually got to talk to him first before I even share it with you. But I think you're right. I think there is some potential. You probably already are doing some creative stuff yourself, but man, it's like, dude, imagine, and I think this will actually be an opportunity in the future. Dude, AI is going crazy right now. Like, I'm going to take this podcast afterwards and I'm going to upload the whole video to opus.pro, and it's going to make a bunch of shorts, and it's going to choose times where you have complete thoughts, and it's going to automatically transcribe text. And in the future, they'll be able to transcribe images about what you're talking about, and they'll get better with time, especially if you use your same login. It'll learn what you like and what you don't like, and it'll learn what a Gaylord is. It'll learn and it can pop these images up as you're talking. Like, it'll get pretty crazy as time goes on, but and it's learning really fast. But dude, like, we have Scout IQ, we have Scoutly, we have all these apps. Imagine the Amazon Seller app's already really fucking cool. You can scan the cover of a book. Imagine walking into a thrift store and you scan the whole section of books, as long as that little sliver of the cover is showing, and it's just going to tell you, hey, these 3 books are profitable. Like, that is possible in the future, so like, you'll just scan a whole fucking section. Like, all right, these 3 books are it. You'll go into a Walmart and you'll just walk down the aisle, like, put your fucking virtual reality goggles on or whatever, and just look, and it'll say that's $30 profit. Like, dude, it's going to get really crazy. And like, now, even as I'm saying this, I'm kind of like geeking myself out. Like, dude, it's going to be so fucking crazy with these apps once they start learning. And dude, retail arbitrage is going to be so much fun. Like, there's going to be some crazy shit out there.
Yeah,
I forgot why I started talking about that, but
no, I mean, I agree, because the only thing we've been wanting now is like kind of just some sort of facial recognition, like cover search, where it's like you just take a picture of the cover of the book and it can pull a face on Amazon. That's something I don't think is exactly out there, at least in terms of like being accurate to the point where you can rely on it. That's one thing I think.
Even like a machine that like opens up, because a lot of the opportunity, I feel like, is in the books that have nothing on the cover, just completely, the dust cover is missing. Yeah. So like, if you can somehow flip that page open, I feel like that would be, if you could efficiently do that. Like Omer is, he's got a really good. Do you guys use the automation machines?
No, we don't. We don't use conveyors.
Let me see if I can pull that up real quick.
I've seen Omer's setup.
Yeah, I just want to show people. I think his setup is just so cool to look at. What's your opinion on that? Like, should people? Do you think? Because I've heard it doesn't really speed up your operation too much. It's more about precision.
Right. In terms of speed, you're probably looking at about the same. It's exactly what you said: precision and no human error. Right.
Mm-hmm. If I can find this, I just love looking at his Instagram page. I wish I would have had that back in the day. My bulk operation was out of a storage unit, so like I kind of actually have a bitter taste with bulk books, and I don't think I had the best source either. Here, I'll share my screen real quick. Boom. All right, so this is what the automation looks like. It's my buddy. I think he's got 2 warehouses, one in St. Louis and one in Arizona. But you can see the books are they're being pushed different ways. So like, what do? They stack them barcode up, right?
Yeah. So they're stacking the barcode up, separating it from the non-barcode books, and then someone's just feeding the conveyor the barcodes. But see, here's where the opportunity comes, right? Like I know they are, but they might not be to a T processing all the non-barcode books because it just takes way more time, right? I believe last time I went to Omer's warehouse, they are though, so I could be wrong, but maybe not everything.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's just so cool to look at. Like, very cool. So, oh, by the way, all my bulk people out there that use Pallet IQ, restrictedinventory.com is now partnered with Pallet IQ.
Grind hard, well done, sir, and welcome to the freaking Well Show.
We'll sell your textbooks for you at a 50-50 split. We have a partner who has an account that is basically like we have approval from Amazon and the law firm that does test orders to sell your textbooks. So if you send us textbooks and they end up being counterfeit, there's no harm on your part. We're not going to return you the counterfeit book, but you can just run all your books through us. We'll sell them on Amazon for you at a 50-50 split. So now we're integrated with Pallet IQ. So when you scan a book on Pallet IQ, it not only tells you what you would make at, sell back your book, Amazon FBA, but it also tells you how much you can make if you send it to restrictedinventory.com. Vishal is I think you actually are our biggest consignor ever. So appreciate your business there.
Nice.
All right, back to the pod. What are your goals for the future, man? What kind of do you have in plan for as a young bookseller, 24 years old? What's your vision?
So probably going on like the 4th or 5th year, kind of lost count, but now the plan is kind of just to optimize what we already have. So in terms of growth, bringing on more supply, more employees, we probably won't go down that route. It's optimizing what we have and squeezing more out of our current operation and just essentially making it as lean as possible, which I mentioned earlier. That's what we're focusing on for the next year. And I think after that, we'll be a bit older as well then. We will probably eye some sort of diversification away from the Amazon business. So I don't know necessarily what we'll invest in or what we'll do. That's something to figure out later. But I think in terms of growth from our book operation, it's nearing an end, and we'll probably just start focusing more on our bottom line and generating as much cash flow as we can. Yeah.
Do you have I know you're young, but have you thought about like a personal, like a number in your head for what you want in the bank to retire? Like a nest egg?
I probably won't retire even if I hit that number. But if I was to just throw a random number out there, probably like 6 million.
6 mil?
Yeah, assuming it's before 30. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's 6 years away, assuming inflation's not.
I won't hit that number, but I'm just saying that would be the number. But I probably wouldn't retire anyway, so.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Let's see. So you don't plan on selling items outside Amazon? You're just going to run it up with books?
No, we sell DVDs, CDs, and stuff.
But I mean like wholesale, online arbitrage.
Probably not. No.
Don't let those kids on TikTok get too excited. Okay, let's see. What's the worst part about being a bookseller?
It's stressful. I like how like our merch fulfilled side kind of made it less stressful because we're selling a lot of our inventory on these other channels as well. So we're not. I mean, we still are relying on Amazon, but it's not extremely reliant on Amazon. Although I am a firm believer, if you have nothing to worry about, you probably have nothing to worry about. I don't think they're just going to ban you one morning because they feel like it. There's usually a reason, and you can probably get it reversed if it's not that big of a reason. So it is a stressful business. Operationally, it's stressful. Machines break down. There's a lot of problems. People can not show up to work and stuff like that. So operationally, it's stressful as well. Softwares can have glitches. I think Pallet IQ just went down like yesterday. So
yeah, AWS went down. So
16 people trying to scan, and then they can't scan. So that can obviously think about how much labor hours you're just wasting. So,
but GoToLister didn't go down, guys. GoToLister stayed strong because we don't use AWS.
Right.
So let's see. What's the best part about being a bookseller?
It's pretty consistent. Like, I guess economic times might not be too good right now, but I feel like as an Amazon seller, we haven't really been noticing that. We're getting lots of supply. Our sales are normal. They're where they should be. I like how December, January, August, September, you get a huge bump. So you'll make most of your profit in those 4 or 5 months. That's what I like. And it's a relatively clean business. You don't like deviate too much from the norm. You just kind of buy books and sell them. So there's not too much going on either.
Right. What are some tips you have for repricing books? Just like an overarching strategy to make as much profit as possible.
So we have floors set in place. I think the lowest floor is at $1. The floor varies based on how popular the book is and how long it's been in our inventory before. So the more popular book that just hit our inventory might have like a little bit higher than $1 floor. But if something has surpassed like 90 or 120 days, the floor drops quite a bit to the point where it's like just break even. So you want to make sure you taper your floors off as things get older. And you need to sell through them at a certain point.
Right.
Yeah, we do nothing fancy in our pricing. It's literally just check the popularity of the book via sales rank and check how long it's been in our inventory, and then make a combination of those two things to determine the floor.
Mm-hmm. And then what are you doing to liquidate? Are you just doing that like once a month? Is it automatic? Do you
No, it's not automatic. I just run a report and run some Excel formulas on it to figure out what the duds are, and then those are just sent off to the VA to liquidate. So I manually export a report, manually just put in some formulas to figure out what inventory is trash and needs to go. And then from there, and I guess the criteria, it's a bunch of things, but the most common is like how long it's been in our inventory for, what's the sales rank, what's the price. Like sometimes there's stuff that I don't even know why we listed in there. I feel like they might throw it wrong in the warehouse or something, but you'll find like these random books.
Everything looks that way. When you look at the 180-day inventory, you're like, what was I thinking? Everything. Yeah. But then you go back and you look at the Keepa, and it's like one of those Keepas where it's like this, and then one day went down, and you happen to scan it on the one day where the sales rank dropped.
Yeah.
You know? So that's why you got to use Z-score.
Exactly.
All right, I'm gonna officially steal this from the podcast that no longer exists. We might have some of those guys listening right now, Books and Bourbon. But what's your geek out moment? What have you been like really passionate about lately? That's kind of weird.
I don't do much other than, I mean, I don't believe in like focusing on several things at once. So like literally like I wake up.
That is so true, man. It's fucking difficult out here.
I'm pretty laser focused on what we're doing, at least for the next year. Like I said before, like
yeah,
we're just focused on optimizing our current business for the next year, and then
you don't have like any hobbies though, or you don't play like Candy Crush in the bathroom? Like what's your kind of go-to?
Settlers of Catan. I'm obsessed with that game. I play that with my cousins all the time.
Nice.
Yeah.
You leave work. Do you shut your brain off when you're gone?
No. This is like 2 a.m. at night.
Okay.
Like 1 a.m. at night. But yeah, Settlers, super fun.
Heck yeah. Can we get a Manroop guest appearance on the pod?
No, because I know he's busy.
He's doing the real work.
Yeah, he is. Someone's got to do the work, man.
What benefits have you had from social media? Like, have you realized any benefits or maybe bad things that have happened? People stealing your sources?
Not stealing sources. I've only met good people. I mean, all the friends I have in the space, I obviously met them through Facebook or Instagram, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's how I first became aware of you. That's how I figured out about Caleb, David, and all those guys.
How much has Dave Can Read helped you in your business?
A lot, and he's still helping us to this day. So he's super knowledgeable and he's helpful.
What type of guidance did he give you that was like truly meaningful? Like, if you can just give us like a few examples, because you guys are on the path of, kind of going down bulk books, which a lot of people don't know about. Like, what are some of the things that he saved you, a ton of time or money by preventing you from going down the wrong path?
I mean, he helped. One, he gave us some good connections. So like our current recycling is basically how we like deal with our byproduct is he kind of helped formulate that. So in terms of like some strategic business things, he did help us a lot in that aspect. He still is helping us to this day in terms of moving some of our like media and our CDs and DVDs. So he's helping quite a bit there. I don't know if Dave remembers this, but this is a while ago. He said about when we were talking about the book business and how he said like, oh, we'll probably like try optimizing it for a year and then, try diversifying, doing something else. Right. And that was kind of something David told us as well, is that eventually you have to think beyond books, especially when you've been doing, he's been doing it for way longer than us, but at that point we will probably be hitting like 5 years as well. So instead of just keeping all our eggs in one basket, at that point, it might be time to start thinking about something else. And that doesn't mean we're stopping books or leaving books. We're still there, but we're not actively trying to grow or make it better. We're just trying to keep up with the time and stay where it's at.
Right. So different entrepreneurial ventures, different business models bring out different parts of different skill sets, and they hone different skill sets. What skill sets do you think you've honed as a bulk bookseller that maybe you could transfer to other businesses? Like, what things do you think you've gotten really good at that maybe other businesses don't allow you to get good at?
Analyzing data. Manroop just said that. That's a good thing. So like
get your ass on this pod, bro. You're not allowed to talk unless you show your face. What's up, brother? I'm gonna add you to the thumbnail.
Analyzing data. So a lot of spreadsheets, looking at a lot of prices and stuff like that, sales rank and finding correlations between things. But I think just like that's probably the best one. I have another one, but it's not that great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think just managing people. I think bulk booksellers, there's so much margin to be had. Like you said, fixing the bottom line, or optimizing the bottom line. I think bulk booksellers, unlike online arbitrage sellers, and wholesalers probably get good at this too because they have warehouses. But I think like really realizing, okay, we're doing, let's just say 100K in sales, or let's say $1 million in sales each year. That's still not that much for a bulk seller. 3 million in sales. If you're able to optimize $50,000 to $150,000 just by like reducing expenses, that's money back in your pocket.
Because not a lot of like when you talk to bulk sellers about margin, like I think the number thrown out, it can vary anywhere from 5 to 20%. I feel like an average is a lot of people are in the 10 to 15% range. Ours might be a bit higher because we do benefit from being in Canada and exchange rate and stuff, but like every percent counts. It's actually huge, especially at the scale where your payroll's in the hundreds of thousands, your warehouse rent's in the hundreds of thousands a year. Like any like small tweak you can make to your freight, getting it $100 cheaper, that ends up being thousands of dollars a month.
Right.
So I was talking to Manroop about this other where we no longer care about tens or hundreds, we care about thousands, right? So like a $10 subscription doesn't bother us really, or a $20 subscription or $100, like that stuff doesn't matter when there's so many things you can do. Like we can literally change our merch fulfilled shipping carrier and like change it around a bit, and that can end up being $60,000 a year in savings.
Yeah. Your software expenses got to be pretty crazy, right? Each month.
Oh, we're paying. Yeah, it's a lot. You said subscription costs?
Yeah.
Probably like 8-9K a month.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And have you thought? I know you've done a little bit of in-house software development. Have you thought about doing 100% in-house?
Never went that far. No, yeah. I mean, did our own repricing for a bit, and we don't even use that anymore.
Mm-hmm.
It's just too hard to maintain, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a reason why software solutions exist. Like they're extremely difficult to maintain and optimize, So
Yeah.
who's your favorite entrepreneur? Do you have one like off the top? You Elon Musk guy?
Probably Mark Zuckerberg.
Really?
Yeah, I think he's a machine.
Most people don't say that.
Yeah.
Everybody says I look like him though. So
Yeah, no, I think he's a machine. He was young when he started off. He made something. It got way too big. He received a bunch of heat for it. And even now, like, he doesn't have, like, from just the business, he doesn't have the luxury that a lot of other businesses have. Like, he can't, like, when you get that big, like, for example, how he started Threads. Well, you would be like, oh, why doesn't he just buy Twitter? They have enough money to buy Twitter. They could have bought Twitter, but if they tried buying Twitter, it wouldn't get approved. Like, Microsoft's going out, they bought Activision, they bought OpenAI or whatever. The thing is, Facebook can't do that because how they're perceived by everyone is that they're like some monopoly. They can't acquire other companies. It's going to get blocked by the government. So I feel like they have like odds stacked against them, and he still makes it work.
dude, I feel like this is a hot take, but I feel like Mark Zuckerberg started doing jiu-jitsu, which naturally raises your testosterone. I think he's actually taking TRT now. He looks jacked in these pictures.
I was listening to a podcast, and basically it's like they're like, his PR team is like, he probably just gave his phone to his nephew and he's like, do whatever you want. They're like, just get jacked, take a few jiu-jitsu classes, start posing with UFC fighters. A lot of people are actually like him now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I like him more. And my ears are all fucked up. His ears are actually starting to look like mine. So like, I guess we'll look even more alike as time goes on. But no, I think that he started taking TRT, and I think that Elon Musk kind of pissed him off a little bit. They actually might fight. Dana White is actually talking about putting them in the cage, which I think would be fucking amazing. But I think Threads is actually a response from the TRT that he took, making him like more aggressive and being like, fuck Elon, I'm taking him out with Threads. And I think he kind of threw it together in like a month or two.
Yeah, I mean, and they'll eventually figure it out, just exactly how they figured out stories and how they figured out reels, right?
And
again, they can't buy Snapchat. They can't buy TikTok. It's because they won't be allowed. So they have to do it themselves, right?
Mark's always kept his mouth shut, too, when it comes to political stuff. He's like, Elon took the opposite approach, just being super vocal. People like classify Elon as super right-wing, which actually like isn't really even true. Like he's actually got socialist beliefs, but he's been categorized as like super right-wing. Mark's always kept his mouth shut. So people will use Threads who are politically left, which is a majority of like people in the city. There are people that don't want to use Twitter because it's now classified as a right-wing social media platform. So now Threads is becoming like the left-wing Twitter in a sense, So, and I think Mark's really good, just like Gary Vee is, at never voicing their political opinions. And now you can't really classify either of those guys as right or left. I think naturally Mark gets put on the left because Facebook and like all these companies are left. But I think that's a huge thing that maybe a lot of people don't talk about. But I think Threads is like becoming the non-right-wing space for people to tweet, essentially, And
all that aside, if that's what they become, it's still successful.
Yeah, well, I think my point is people choose tribes,
Yeah.
And so there's going to be a lot of people that are like pro Threads now because of what Elon has like done to Twitter. Like he just fucking bought it. Like there's not too much you can do to a social media platform, but now people like classify it as like, oh, this is like this, this is for those people. It's just how our fucking brains operate. We want shit easy. We want to be part of team A, team B, whatever. So All right, back to the pod, back to book talk. Please give us advice on how to source books from recycling companies. Should people be sourcing books from recycling companies?
We actually don't get books from recycling companies. What you can do is not the people who like shred and bail your books like your dads, but but maybe like a recycling depot, like a local small recycling depot where people can like give paper and throw their bottles and stuff. They might have books, and that would actually be a good source if they do.
Gotcha.
Again, on how to source them exactly. Once you find the spot and you know they have books, it all comes down to calls and emails. We don't really do anything fancy. You just got to keep asking for books.
Mm-hmm. Someone's asking to use any machines. You're all manual labor tables. Humble software salesman rides coattails of real businessman more at 11. I have no idea what that means. Any eBay involved? Yeah, you're doing quite a. What are your eBay sales?
Probably, like in terms of our merch fulfill side of the business, excluding FBA, eBay is about 30%.
Well, how would FBA contribute to?
Because I could just say Amazon, eBay, A, but a lot of the sales on Amazon are FBA. So I'm just assuming Amazon MF, eBay MF, and like the other ones.
You get 30%. So out of
like 55 to 60% is off Amazon in terms of our merchant sales.
What does that come out to? Like 150K a month on eBay?
About 70 to 80-ish.
Okay.
Yeah.
Still pretty impressive. That's decent volume. Repricer.
So we use those the
Give me one.
enterprise level ones. So like Needle Scan for MF and then Cash Monkey for FBA.
Sorry about that. Out here at the hotel. Got room cleaning. All right, guys. That wraps up the pod. We got Vishal. His information will be below. You guys should go follow him. I'll make sure to link that below. Currently, it's not linked, but everyone watching the replay, his IG will be below. You don't have a YouTube, do you?
No.
No YouTube. Van City FBA on IG. Go give him a follow. Thanks so much, man. Really enjoyed that. We'll be making some clips out of this. I think people will get a lot of value from it. Any last words for the people?
No, just reach out on Instagram if you have any questions. I'd be happy to answer them. I'm not too active on there. Probably haven't posted in months, but I do respond to messages. So
awesome. Sweet, brother.